me tell you about a friend. It's Craig LeBlanc where the good times never end. Talking Parks and Rec, it's a show you gotta know. Welcome one and all to the Daily Parks and Rec Show. It's the Daily Parks and Rec Show.
I got really lucky to just be at the right place at the right time, Craig. San Bernardino, I'm telling you, was kind of this gold mine of every day. There was like another conversation. And I remember my executive admin, she would always tell me, she's just like, you're never in the office. And I'm like, let me know when I need to be in the office. I was out on, I was in meetings constantly because I wanted people to know the story. And I think that's a big part of collaboration. If you truly want to talk about it, is you can't just go into a collaboration without knowing what your end goal needs to be. That's how you build the story. That's how you build how this collaborative effort is going to engage into the next. As parks directors, we have such a huge role in being diligent in how we protect our communities and how we protect public trust.
Welcome to the Daily Parks and Recreation Show. Today, we're taking you to the vibrant community of San Bernardino, California, a place where parks, recreation, and public services play a powerful role in bringing people together. Here's what's coming up in today's episode. A look at exciting community events, from cultural celebrations to fun-filled outdoor activities, a spotlight on essential services, everything from youth sports to senior programs and more. And we're thrilled to be joined by Lydie Gutfeld, a dedicated parks and recreation professional from San Bernardino, California. She's giving us a behind-the-scenes look at how her team is creating meaningful impact through inclusive, community-driven programs. Whether you're a Parks and Rec pro, a passionate community advocate, or just love seeing local communities thrive, this episode is packed with inspiration. Let's jump in.
All right, we are live again. This is Craig LeBlanc, the doorman, with the Daily Parks and Rec Show. Oh, look, I've got to, let me correct. For those of you that don't know, I also do a nighttime Bitcoin show. That's how I actually got into media. And part of me getting into that media was like coming back to Parks and Rec, my industry I sat in for over a decade. And I was like, y'all need a media company. And of course, my Park and Rec director friends were like, awesome idea, Craig, you do it.
You got voluntold.
I sure did. And I have an awesome guest with me out in California, 9 a.m. where she's at, Lydie Gutfeld. She has been the president of her state association. It's got to be, if not the biggest, one of the top three for sure in the country. California does Parks and Rec so well. Some of our best people, directors, programs, whatever, are out in California, been long-standing investing in the beautification of their communities, running programs and stuff. And Lydie's been eyeballs deep into this since. Was there ever a time that you weren't in Parks and Rec?
Yeah, when I was 13. It's getting harder to say when I say I've been in this for 30 plus years. It makes me feel weird.
Right. Well, maybe take us back to those early days when you, as a child, what do you think got you into Parks and Rec that kind of drew your attention in the early days? Because I know you came in a lot through swimming and athletics and that kind of stuff, but maybe help us understand the backstory. And that'll kind of, hopefully that's going to bleed into your why you do what you do.
It's kind of funny when I think back, my story that I always tell is, when I was 15, I got in trouble and I did something stupid and I had to do some community service hours. And so, mom dropped me off at the community center closest to her work. And she was a hairstylist for the movie industry. So she had a shop in Beverly Hills. I know we did not live in Beverly Hills, but that's where she worked. So that's where I got dropped off. And it was the Roxbury Community Center. And within 2 days of doing hours, I was hooked. I wanted to be there. I was helping people. And community service hours is not a glorious job, folks. I was setting up chairs, picking up trash, but I just quickly recognized that the people who were coming into the center had a need and the center was filling the need. It was that basic. And
Mm.
I just fell in love with it. And I actually just asked the supervisor if I could come and do more hours. And so I ended up, finalizing my hours there. And then it just kind of kicked off into being asked, well, what kind of passions do you have? And I was a competitive swimmer. So then I went to the pool, and that kind of really kicked off the career path. But before that, if I look back, I was a latchkey kid. My parents both had really crazy schedules for their jobs. And so my responsibility as a kid was to make sure I got home safely, change out of my school clothes.
You had to
And
kind of
put
run
on,
your own life then at an early age.
there was no rules except don't get your school clothes dirty, do your homework. And when the lights go out, get inside,
Don't burn the house down while we're gone. No
we
crazy
weren't even
parties.
allowed in the house. It was like there's too much of like an error margin that could go wrong there. There was 4 of us kids, so we definitely were rambunctious, but we kept each other busy at the park and playing games and just always interacting. So community was really big for me when I was younger, and it still is to this day. I'm also an immigrant. I came here from France. I didn't speak the language. And so I had to really learn about, what community was and speak their language. And I really learned the love language of just being a good person and just, making sure you look out for others and recognizing that sometimes differences can equal some great things. And I definitely was, different. I didn't speak the language. I dressed differently. I ate different foods, and, I had to adjust with that as a kid. And I think that that's kind of something that built my character. But once I got into aquatics, I just was like, this is so cool. How am I getting paid to teach kids how to swim? How am I getting paid to get the best tan in the world in the summertime? And I did that for a few, summers. And then I remember there was an opening for a park ranger. And this is going to sound so silly, but I was like, they have a really cool uniform. And I like the hat, so I'm going to go for it. And I did. And I became the first female park ranger in the city of Beverly Hills. I was badge number 2.
Wow.
And I got stationed at the Greystone Mansion in Beverly Hills, which is a very cool historical mansion, total ghost stories, like so many cool movies are filmed there. And I got the opportunity to really start learning about walking facilities and, what it is to rent a facility. And I got to work with location scouts, and I got to meet really cool actors. But that whole process taught me about, true responsibility. For my responsibility was opening up this facility and closing it.
Yeah.
And that seems like a very easy thing. But when you're talking about a 50-bedroom or 50-room mansion with, multiple amenities, bowling alley, movie theater, and everything else in between. And then you're talking about multi-million dollar productions. At the age of 20, it was a lot. And I started to see that I definitely had a knack for, communicating and socializing and being responsible for multitasking and big projects. And so I stuck with the park ranger gig for quite a few years. And I kind of stayed with the city of Beverly Hills, and things just kind of started opening up. And I think that that's just because of, showing your leadership and showing your work ethic and making sure that you have a pride in, the city that you're serving. There was an opportunity to grow into the school district after school program. So I started doing that. And then all of a sudden 9 years had passed, and I couldn't believe I had already done 9 years in Beverly Hills.
And that was all through that first job?
All through community service for being a bad teenager.
I want you to kind of describe, because you were basically immersed as a child into the culture that Parks and Rec creates.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, like, if you could describe that as a child, what it was like to grow up in the Parks and Rec culture, because that is such a common story among Parks and Rec people, that they were the after school care kid.
Yeah.
And they grew up in the culture that was created by a director like yourself. And they're in this system. This is their childhood. So maybe bring us into that world a little bit.
Yeah, we talk about the cycle quite a bit of like the impact that we create. We don't realize that that impact has been made until 20 years later when that person comes back and asks for a job,
Mm,
right? And
right.
so I think for me, two things happened that really made me connect with parks and with community. And so the first is where I grew up in France. It's in a very small town. It's Agen, and my grandparents were farmers. And so we kind of had our farmers market. And so we were responsible for community building and getting food to our community. And that was our job as kids, is helping my grandparents get, the food to the farmers market and helping people get that out to their families and onto plates. So that's number one, is the community aspect. But when I came to the States, I didn't have that. That was gone.
Mm,
There was no farms where I was. I was in Glendale, California. So it was, next to Burbank and Dodger Stadium. Like that's all I had. And so I think then I started to recognize, especially when my mom had, crazy schedule, I had to rely on the safety of these programs for after school programs and programs that were in our parks. And we were very fortunate to have a park literally a block away from the house. And so
mm.
it became my second home, and it became my safety net. And the programs that were there created exactly that, just a sense of space, a sense of ownership. I loved my park. It is a park that I still to this day will take my kids to. And it's something that I value, because that park is where I learned how to socialize. That park is where I learned how to speak the language of English. And it also was where I had my first kiss. It's, there's all these cool memories that come
Yeah.
from that park. And I think that that was ingrained to me from the very beginning.
Mm. And so now you kind of started dipping your toe into a career in this industry. And
Mm.
I love that story about the mansion, because it just goes to show how many varying ways there are to find your way in, and how diverse this industry is as far as what it throws at you. I mean, from a farmer's market to a
Yeah.
graveyard to an after school care to elderly care to a mansion,
Right.
it's all
Yeah.
Parks and Rec.
And I say this all the time to staff, and even when I'm teaching sessions, is you have to have a generalist attitude. Like,
Yes.
be that person that one day becomes a director that has literally can say, I've tapped into all things parks, recreation, and community services. Like,
Mhm.
there's so much out there to do. And so I always laugh when people are like, oh, are you bored in your job? I said, there's no way. If
Oh
you
my
are
god.
bored in your job, you're not supposed to be doing this then,
You're in
because
the wrong department. You must have
yes,
stumbled into the police department or fire department. You're definitely not in Parks and Rec.
and I'm really proud to say that I have tapped into all but one.
What's that?
Animal services. I can't. I would adopt 400 dogs. Like I
Oh,
can't. So
yes.
it's like, it's not that I don't want to. It's, I know my heart
Yeah.
I would become the animal care center at my home. So
Well, I've had several directors on here that just, were recruited for a zoo and had 0 zoo experience, but they were like, "We think you have what it takes to run our zoo." And I've never run a zoo, but here I am running the zoo
see,
now.
yeah, see, I could take on a zoo. In San Bernardino, I had a cemetery. That was my very first one. And I was like, well,
Oh.
this is new.
The
Okay.
the neighborhood's quiet, but they like the grass cut.
Oh my goodness.
Um, okay, so then what's your next step out of community service? What can you just define, how do you define community service just in
Ooh.
general to the
Um,
general public?
it's kind of like the hierarchy of needs meets survival through quality of life, and
Mm,
so for me, community service is that natural quality of life improver. And it shouldn't be about, in my opinion, I don't think community service should be about a bottom line revenue number. It
mhm.
should be about improving quality of life. And so it's the services we provide into the community that engage that thread of improvement
Now, is
constant.
that just community service? Is that just like a general blanket that can almost sit alongside the title of Parks and Rec, or is it a part of Parks and Rec, or is it just kind of a huge umbrella that sits on top of
You're
everything?
digging into a loaded question in the
Yes.
first 10 minutes of our interview. I have very, very many internal battles with this, because
Mhm.
I've been parks, let's see, I've been parks, recreation, and community services. I've been community services, and then I've been recreation community services. I think the way it was created, if we, go back to when it all started, I think it all started with community service, because in
Mm.
order for us to create program, period, it has to be a service. And so
Mhm.
I think community service is the core. I think we evolve into parks and recreation as we grow our outdoor spaces, as we grow our green spaces, as we grow our opportunities to engage in more athletic or free activity.
Mhm.
Um, I think that's where recreation comes in. But I think at its core, community services is where all programming begins.
Yeah. Now, how about like the urban forestry and the green spaces that still is, I mean, I would say that still finds its way into serving the community because you're creating the spaces for the community to exist in.
Absolutely. You've created a program, right? You've created a system. And I
Yeah.
think that system provides a service. And that's kind of the argument, is which
Mm.
is what is it?
Yeah.
I remember when CPRS, California Parks and Recreation Society, came out and they did this huge marketing, push for the Parks Make Life Better brand.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of feedback that came from it that was like, why isn't it parks and recreation makes life better? Or where do seniors fall into parks? And that
Mhm.
really is what kind of triggered my thinking of like, well, it's really community services at its core, because
Mhm.
parks engages all of it, but the community service is the actual service that we provide to every community, every visitor, every whoever that comes into our spaces.
And so explain how maybe even things like special events falls into this.
Right. So there it is. So I fall back on programming, right?
Mhm.
There has to be a plan in action. There has to be special events is so unique, I think, in our community services
Mhm.
portfolio, because it's something that can serve your internal community, right? Just the people that actually live in your community. And then there's some special events that just get so big that you have visitors that come in, and now you're
Mhm.
engaging on bringing it as a destination for
Like,
people to attend, and it's creating this mega service, right? And
mhm.
I think that's kind of the coolest thing that we can do in recreation. In When I was in San Bernardino, they had just come out of bankruptcy, and when I got there, it was very much like, we don't do programming because we don't have any money. We don't do this because we don't have any money. We don't, so we don't have any money. That's like what kept hearing that theme. And I was like, well, then we're just going to focus on special events, because that is the number one way to engage your community, no matter where you are, because
Right.
it's a citywide special event, right? And
Mhm.
so, sure enough, the one that we started ended up being recognized by the National League of Cities, because it was
What
something that
was it?
it was our festival where your cultures connect. And it was a 1 day festival, culturally based. So we had 28 different cultures represented:
Wow.
food, music, art, performances. And then we added, a kids' village with carnival rides. We added an animals village where people got to see different animals that they would never seen. And people are like, oh, that's fine. I've heard of that. Well, cool. You've heard of it, but you haven't heard of it in a community that is so underserved, where they will
Mm.
never be able to go and pay for a zoo ticket at the San Diego Zoo, but we brought a raptor here today, or we
Wow.
brought a llama here today, right? Or, sure, it's great that other communities can afford tickets to go to the carnival or the fair of their county. These individuals can't, right?
Mm.
And so this is a free event. It was done on 100% community collaboration. Every village that we had was led by community collaborators and community-based organizations. And we applied for the National League of Cities Equity Award, and it was nominated and accepted. And it was such a cool thing, because in just one way of bringing so many different community groups together, we were able to engage an entire community. And it's something that was nationally recognized, and something we're really, really proud of there.
Now, how important was it to them, or did you kind of notice that having maybe addressing their culture, involving their culture, making it a part of your special event? What did that do for those people? And then
Mhm.
also did that change you in any way? Or did you see a new side?
Yes. Yes to all of it. So I'll speak on the community first. When a city goes into bankruptcy and goes into real hardship, it's devastating. I mean, there's just so many facets of it that are so impactful in a negative way. And it becomes kind of the, it's like a juggernaut of no, 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 no. And you just see the deflation of community pride and community spirit. The nutty thing about this city was that before the bankruptcy, they were already a very much underserved city. So you're talking a population of 225,000-ish, 66 square miles, and 70% of that population lives under the national poverty level.
And where part of the state is this? Or
this is San Bernardino. So this is in the Inland Empire.
And what's the closest big metro around that? Is this
Riverside?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're already down at the bottom. And this was something that I had never dealt with. I worked in Beverly Hills, Irvine, and Mission Viejo. Three very affluent communities in LA and Orange County. And that was why I got recruited and took this job in San Bernardino, because I was like, this is going to be my opportunity to really see a different side of community service. I'm going from very affluent to nothing, like literally nothing. And when I got there, I just quickly realized that I started interviewing the staff and asking, well, what have you guys been doing? Like, how have you guys survived bankruptcy? And their response was, we just opened our doors. And I said, okay, well, were people coming in? No. Well, why? Because it's not safe, because there's gangbangers, because there's shootings, because there's homeless people, because there's criminal activity. It was all of the things. And so it's like, well, who's doing all the programming? Because I do see programs in the community, and it was all the nonprofits. And
you're a director at this point?
Okay,
so you're coming in as a director.
Yeah.
Let me give a little, if you paint a little color for us here. So 200,000 people. What's your staff size?
I had 27 full-time and about 200 part-time.
And what's your operating budget at that time?
It was $7 million.
$7 million. And how, I guess, capital improvements was down to not much.
Well, that was the uniqueness of it. This is when all the ARPA money came in. So the city got $75 million in ARPA money.
Wow.
And so that was my other thing of when are you ever going to get to spend this kind of cash and really try and make a change and flip a city? So for me, I'm always up for a challenge.
Right.
I have to be honest. I would say 90% of my friends, colleagues, peers were like, what are you doing? Absolutely not. This is not a good idea, Lydie. And I was like, I'm going in. Because I had a great gig. I was, community services manager in Mission Viejo. I had a great boss. I had a great team. Like,
how old were you at the time? Like, how many years had you been in Parks and Rec? You were a decade in, or?
In Parks and Rec, or as a manager, or as a director?
Or just at that point, you were.
I was 28 years.
28. So
I started when I was 14. So it's really like, but yeah, I did 9 years in Beverly Hills, 13 and a half in Irvine, 7 in Mission Viejo, and then I transferred over.
So you were looking, you had to have been just looking for a challenge. Some part of your spirit was like, I need something that's going to challenge me.
I think what happened, honestly, is when I got the manager job in Mission Viejo, I was so excited to finally be out of, Irvine is this master plan city. It's a great city. I have nothing but great things for Irvine. But I came in at the same time that 18 other people with my same age, my same skill set, my same ability came in. And so every time a full-time position promotion came up, all of us would go for it. And it just caused this friction, right? And it lessens your love for what you're doing, because you become kind of part of this wheel, the cog, right? And so I was like, I'm going to do everything I can in Irvine. And I'm so blessed because I had a wonderful city manager, Sean Joyce. I will give shout outs to him because he was really big about mission statement. Like, we were mission driven, but we were also about standard of excellence. Like, everything had to tie back to our strategic plan. Everything had to tie back to mission statement. Everything was about values, and when you do that and you start to really understand what that means, it changes your mindset of like, I'm not just doing this because I love it. I'm doing this because I believe in it.
What's the mission? What was the mission at that time?
Oh my gosh. Now you're going to put me on the spot. We create excellent programs through excellent customer service. Gosh, I don't even remember. It was excellent customer service, strategic thinking, cultural awareness, and like something about like open spaces, you know? And so everything that we did had to tie into that. And
Right.
it became this, you know, when you have a master plan city that's really well run, it becomes this true belief system. And
Mhm.
it was just kind of a neat thing. And I didn't realize it when I was there.
Well, it helps you to say yes and no because you can say on mission, off mission.
Yep.
If it's off mission, it's an easy no, and you're not having to have all these meetings around it. It's clear.
Nope. No, it was, and the cool thing about Irvine was that it was never, we never got bad things happen. Like it was just like the bubble, you know?
Mhm.
And so I was very fortunate in that sense, got paid really, really well. And it was good. It was
Mhm.
good. But I got to the point where like, okay, I had done kids, I had done teens, I had done, you know, adult programming, contract classes. And then I got put into seniors, which that's a whole different conversation that we can have on another day. And then I was like, okay, now what? You know, and the next thing was, okay, become a supervisor. But then I'm like, I'm going to supervise all these things that I've already done. I don't
Mhm.
know that that's what I want. And I just kind of felt stuck. So when the position for manager came up in Mission Viejo, I went for it. And I was 8 months pregnant. And I know that, like, okay,
Mm.
you know, you can't say, oh, we didn't hire you because you were pregnant. But I was like, I am 8 months pregnant. This is not going to like be something I can hide. Right. I mean, and the
Right.
reality is, I'm going to get hired if I get the job. And then it's going to be like, hey, team, bye, team.
I will have this baby in this office if y'all don't let me out.
And so it was, gosh, I mean, I remember having kind of, you know, some panic moments about it, but you know,
Mhm.
I went through it, and Mission Viejo was so different from Irvine, and it's wild. It's next door, and I didn't know anything but Irvine, and so I get there, and I'm so used to Irvine, you know, staff-led programming and massive special events and all of these things, and I get to Mission Viejo, much smaller city, and everything is contract led. And I
Mm.
was like, what? Everything is like a pay to pay service, like a membership service. And it was all of a sudden, I was like, there it is again. Wow, here's another facet of recreation that I had no idea even existed. And so it was really neat to just retrain my brain and start looking at it. But Mission Viejo, man, they taught me about contracts. I mean, I became really, really good at analyzing a contract, understanding the scope of services, you know, making sure that everything was in line, because that's how that city functioned. And I got the opportunity to do like a couple really cool CIP projects. And you know, I'm again blessed,
Yeah.
blessed, blessed. I had a
And
very supportive director who I approached with the idea of maybe allowing me to go through the presidency series with the state board.
mm.
And he was 100% on board. Thank you, Mark Nix.
What is that? What is it called?
The presidential series. So
Mhm.
I had already served on district boards with California Parks and Rec. But then the state board is where you have an opportunity to either become a region representative, a section
Mm.
representative, or part of the presidential series. And
Mm.
so I got nominated onto the state board to be a section representative. They have 7 sections that highlight different areas, whether it's aging, education, aquatics, yada yada.
Mhm.
So I came on the state board as a section representative. I did 1 year, and that's all it took. 1
Mm.
year was enough for me. I was like, okay, I'm ready. I want to do the presidential series, and so I approached my boss. He said yes. I had the opportunity to do it. I got elected, which was super cool. And then I spent the next, 4 years just going through the state board series and doing that. And it was one of the best experiences of my life. I learned so much about the state at that point.
Now that's with the state association
Yeah.
that runs through,
Yeah.
and that's where
And
you were president of the association during that time
yep.
period?
Yep. So I was president 2019, 2020. And my outgoing, I'll never forget it, outgoing presidential speech to say goodbye was the day that the world shut down. And so we were at conference,
No way.
and yeah, and we walked out of that session, and pretty much everybody was on their phones getting calls from their bosses and their council saying it's time for you to come home.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So I was the last hurrah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, but what I was getting at is when I was in Mission Viejo, I just had the time to learn some new stuff, but also a little bit more freedom to kind of engage in myself as a professional and really build myself as a professional. I also went back to school. I got my master's degree at that time. So kind of
In
was
what?
checking off boxes.
In-
Master's in public administration from
Okay.
Cal State Fullerton. Go Titans.
There you go. Now, I did want to back up just a minute. If you had to give someone looking at contracts a 1 or 2 pointers to say, look, these are some minimum things you need to know about it, something quick you can offer to the community.
Scope of service is crucial. Don't cheat the scope of service. Be very, very, very critical of it, because it is exactly what will be done and what won't be done. And just understanding what not to exceed means, and adding your contingencies in all of your contracts. I can't tell you how many times I've had to do budget amendments because of dates that were wrong in the scope of service, amounts that were wrong in the scope of service, and forgetting to put in a contingency amount. So just making sure those are correct. And of course, now insurance is everything. So just please, please, please make sure that your insurance is talked about and matches what the city requires.
The insurance of the contractor, but also like
Yes.
surety bonds and stuff like that. Is
Yep.
all squared away.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it will happen and you will be the one holding the bag.
Well, here's the deal. And we just went through this here in Placentia, so I could tell that story a little bit later, but I'm now on the 4th amendment of this contract, because this contract was done before I got here. And then when I got here we're taking it to council. So literally my very first meeting, and I was like, I didn't really understand what the scope was. I hadn't been here. Well, now I see that the scope could have been written a little bit differently. I see that the contingency amount wasn't added in there. And now we've had some extra work added onto it. So it's those kind of simple things where it's not like it's a bad thing to do an amendment. But when you start getting to like 3rd Amendment, 4th Amendment, my red flags go up and say, can we stop?
Yeah.
Does anybody else see that we could have probably done a few things differently, And so
Right.
it's great, because now I'm at the point now in my career where I see it and now I can teach it, as to where, I go back, 10 years.
Is that kind of that thing where it's like fail to plan, then you got to plan to fail kind of thing, where it's like planning prevents a lot of this kind of stuff, having that upfront communication before you issue a contract.
Yeah. And I think, I think now, especially after COVID, there has been so much just passed down as far as responsibility to lower level staff. And that's not knocking coordinators or supervisors, but the training isn't there. And I think we need to do a much better job if we're going to expect our coordinators and supervisors to be project managers on CIP projects, to truly understand every step of the project.
Right.
And that includes bringing in people from engineering and public works and community development, so that they really understand it. And the second part of it is teaching those mistakes, right? And like making sure that there's a human element to it, and understanding that mistakes do happen, right?
Yeah.
But also making sure that we're doing a CYA along the way.
Right. Right. And the one thing I would add to that, it's that whole adage that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And if you're trying to just finish the project, starting the project early may be a longer route to finishing the project than if just you take a little bit of time and review everything. You might get to the finish line much quicker. Okay, so let's continue. I didn't mean to derail us too much.
I'm good.
Let's continue with, so, okay, you're back in this town. You got, they're deflated.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we're talking. Okay, so we were talking about the impact on the community and the impact on me. So I think the impact on the community was trust. Number one, there was no trust in the city whatsoever. And so I told my staff, what we need to do is we need a street team, and we need to start going out to every single one of these organizations who has held the glue together for any community service, and we need a partner. We need to build a relationship, and we need to become partners. And
Nonprofits or is
anybody,
anybody?
anybody, like if you were helping people in the community during our bankruptcy where we weren't able to do it because the city was in poor leadership, whatever you want to call it.
Give me some examples of what were some of these people?
After school programs that weren't run by us.
I see.
Food service programs not run by us.
So churches or
Churches. I mean, the
nonprofits?
gamut. There's so many. I mean, and that was it for me. That was where I was like, well, here I thought we were the only, shop in town.
Mhm.
It taught me so much about how service is so broad, and then the second thing, and this is where I fell in love with San Bernardino. I never knew that I would have such a true passion for public service, but it was the first time that I saw need, not want, but need. And it was everywhere.
Let's double click on that for a second, because I think a lot of times we confuse the two. Because sometimes the people that want stuff have just a loud voice, and the people that need things maybe don't have a voice.
Oh,
And
you just said that so beautifully, Craig. I had to teach so many people about speaking up, and it was hard. I was the minority, Craig. Okay. In San Bernardino, this white girl, blonde hair, blue eyes, comes into
They're like, you lost.
They were like, who the hell are you? What, who, and I would bring staff with me. I'm like, y'all, they're not going to listen to me. It's going to take a minute, but it took about 6 months to a year. And then all of a sudden the lights went on and we started seeing that, like, we had this funding now, right? We had this ARPA funding. We had, luckily somebody was smart in the city when we went through bankruptcy and the reserves were starting to build. And so we were no longer in that icky spot of you don't have money. We had to shift that train of thought, though, from like PTSD of we can't spend money, right? And so now all of a sudden it's like we can, and we have resources, and we want to partner with you. And so we really built this one festival event to do that, right? It was about community, yes, but it was about also bringing in every single service provider to make sure that they understood, like, we were a part of this as well, and we wanted to engage. And so
this was a festival that was like a week long, or describe it a little.
1 day.
1 day. And so how many vendors could just be any community providers, not just like
78 vendors.
Wow.
We had 21 restaurants. We had a merchants village where we had a bunch of different merchants. We had a community partners village where like anything from resources to services was allowed. We had, like I said, the animals village, the kids village, and then we had like our performance. Oh, and we had the most beautiful arts village. Oh my gosh. This was another thing that I started to like, the lights went on. I don't know why art is not talked about more, but urban city art is flippin' beautiful. And if you want to learn about culture, just go and actually walk a downtown and see what walls are painted and what it means and what it represents. And I started just to truly like look at all of those little details instead of focusing for the first time on like budget. I was focusing on what this was and why it was looking the way it was, and what I could do to bring in my skill sets from standards of excellence from Irvine, contracts from Mission Viejo, and like, how do I push this so I can make it work? And the team just bought in. Like, it was so cool. I got to tell you, Craig, when you have a team that has, this was the first team I didn't have to teach impact to, which was kind of interesting to me, because usually I'm teaching teams about like, the reason we are successful is because we create impact in community, and we do that through our people, our parks, our programs. And that impact comes back to us with, whether it's resources or grant funding or people wanting to do more, or people coming back, right? And there it was like, they all lived it. the
Right.
staff, I'd say 90% of my staff lived in San Bernardino, were raised in San Bernardino, had their babies in San Bernardino, and raised their families in San Bernardino.
So they're immersed in it. This is their community.
They know what the impact is when something's good, you know?
Right.
And so it was so cool because I didn't have to teach that. So what I had to teach them was to get over the no.
Right.
That's easy. Like I was like, let's go spend some money.
Yeah.
I'm like, we got this. Like I can do this real good, you know? And so once we started putting a plan together, it just exploded. And, you know, it's something to this day, when I'm asked like, what was my proudest, you know, event moment, the festival killed it.
And how many years did y'all now you launched year one on this, or was it
2022? We launched it in 2022. And then with the ARPA funding, we were the park that I should tell you about the park. All right. So Second Lake Park in San Bernardino is this cool park downtown, 44 acres, and it's got a man-made lake in it. I'll repeat that. In downtown San Bernardino, there's a 44-acre park with a man-made lake in it. That's wild. Like, where else is there a downtown that has a man-made lake? You know, you're thinking like Central Park, right? New York City has one. There's not a lot, especially in a town like San Bernardino. And you look at downtown San Bernardino, there's something very special and unique about it because it is a government hub. So in downtown, you've got these 4.5 or so miles of government buildings that have local government, state government, and federal government employees, 35,000 employees, government employees work there from 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. and leave at 5:30 p.m. And out of those 35,000, I think it's like 33,500 leave. Like
really leave. Like they get on the interstate and
it's a ghost town.
Yeah.
It's a ghost town. So it was dead. Like it was wild. Like you would literally, it was like The Walking Dead. You would walk out and it was like, there's no restaurants, there's no life, there's nothing. And it was just wild. So this park became kind of like this, like bing, bing, bing. Like in my brain, I was like, first time I drove out, I was like, there's no way this is ours. This is a county park. And they're like, no, this is your park.
Wow.
All right, I'm going to go walk it.
44 acres downtown.
44 acres downtown.
That's a huge piece of land.
And the homeless situation had just really peaked, especially with COVID. And so we started cleanup efforts. I believe the numbers were 18 tons of trash for 3 weeks straight.
Wow.
So much trash. So much. The public was just like, thank you, thank you, thank you. As soon as they started seeing the cleanup, it was like, oh my God, finally something's happening. And then we had a really good conversation with our city manager and our city council. And we said, we got to fence it. We got to fence it because as much as I hate fencing parks, this is not a safe situation. And if we're going to put all of this effort and all this funding into getting it cleaned up, we got to maintain it clean, you know? Right. And so we did. We put 8-foot iron rod fences around all 44 acres.
All 44 acres. And this is to kind of keep the, and so what did you do about the homeless? How did you work with them? Was there a nonprofit involved or?
We had a ton of nonprofits involved. And I'm going to be honest with you. This is not like, this was not the best thing that we could have done. There was displacement and that's just an honest statement, but we had to choose one thing to do. Like we had to clean up this very visible and wonderful spot in the city to make it usable for its intended purposes, right. You know? So we did work with the nonprofits and we got some great partnerships and some great housing, in there, but it wasn't perfect. I would not ever put that on record to say that.
So the park was now probably had working hours to where it closed. Yes. It opened at this time. It closed at this time.
Correct. And then we hired a private security company to come in and actually open the park. None of the restrooms were working because they had all been gutted out and demolished. So it was a bad situation. So it was a functioning park without restrooms. But the funny thing is, I'll never forget it. It was like 3 weeks after we got the fence up. We would get calls all the time. Like there's a stabbing, there's a shooting, there's a this. The park was like a hub for not safe activity. And we get a call and this lady's like, there's someone running in the park. okay, like, are they running from somebody? What is happening? And they're like, no, like they're exercising. There's somebody running in the park. I just wanted to let you know.
We've never seen this before. Typically, they're running
People
for
were
their life.
like, what the hell is happening? You know, and then all of a sudden it was like, why are there dogs in the park on leashes? You know, it was like, oh, intended uses, right? And so people just flocked. People started going there.
Different
And it,
form of running for your life, but
it was, you know, but we take these things for granted. You know, it's just those things where you're just like, what? Okay, they haven't seen this, right? And so that was when we decided this is the site, this is where we're going to do it. And
so you're a first
and
world nation now.
it became just a pride moment for everybody. And it really, I think that was like the shift. I think that was where the paradigm went from mistrust to like, all right, these guys know what they're doing. They're for us. They want to do by us the right way. And the community bought in, and I'm so blessed for it, because it shifted everything from that moment on. Of there was a belief system, and we backed each other up. And you know, when you walk into a council meeting, I'll tell you this, Craig, is I've been doing this for a long time. I've sat in a lot of council meetings, but never in my life have I ever on my birthday had a council meeting where community members brought me a cake to council and used public comment to sing happy birthday to me.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Congratulations. And this was what, a three-year turnaround, or what?
2 years and 9 months is my total tenure in San Bernardino.
It's where you're at right now, correct?
No, I moved after politics got a little crazy in San Bernardino.
That's right. I remember you telling me that part of it. So you kind of bowed out.
Yep. My goal was to make sure that all of the ARPA contracts that I had committed to were signed and approved by council, so I knew construction would go forward. And then it was time to go.
But still, that's your proudest moment, is coming into that city and leaving it in a lot better than it was when you got there.
Absolutely. You know, it's like the whole, you know, the Dirk Ritchie state, is it Dirk Ritchie? No, Branch Ritchie from the Dodgers, right? It's you leave your agency better than you found it. You know, I think he had 9 rules of public management. I think it's kind of one of those. I didn't know I was going to have such an impact in the community. I still speak to many of my community members. In fact, I'm doing going to read books at the San Bernardino Public Library this Saturday for one of our nonprofits that I became very connected with, but I didn't realize it was going to impact me as well. You know, and for me, the learning that I got, I had the greatest opportunity to really see what need is, and truly understand that as parks directors, we have such a huge role in being diligent in how we protect our communities and how we protect public trust. Because if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have been as successful as I was there, and my team wouldn't have been able to do the work that they did. But then the second part is, I know I meant to serve a community in every way possible now. And I think it's elevated my skill sets. I think it definitely has opened my eyes to know that I want to be a city manager one day. And I think my problem solving skill sets have like gone through the roof. So that's super exciting. But I never thought that I would have this much of a turnaround in my professional career as far as that goes.
Tell us a little bit more about this partnerships that y'all had. You know, how are partnerships important for that turnaround, especially in the nonprofit side? But or I say especially, either one, either private, nonprofit. I like how you said we realized we weren't the only show in town, that there were other people that cared. Even if we were to just fall off the face of the earth, there were other hands that were coming to help out.
Right.
And
I think, you know, I started to realize that like the reason people didn't trust the city was because the city never like truly partnered. Right. And so I had to look at it from like public and private perspective. Sure, there's a lot of public properties, nonprofits that are there to do the good work that nonprofits are there to do, right? But then there's also, this is a massive city and there's a lot of development going on. I was like, let's tap into the developers. Like, let's see what
Mm.
they want to do, and we were able to just do so many cool things with like just special little grants. I remember for the festival, I wanted stipends for the performers, and that was the only, we couldn't use ARPA money for that. We couldn't use we got this California art grant thing. You couldn't use it for like stipends, and I'm like, I need a private firm to be able to give me some funding so I can pay each of the artists $500 to $1,000, depending on what they're
Mm.
doing, because I want them to feel valued. This shouldn't be like, give me for free to make my event right. I'm gonna be like, no, I'm inviting you because this is going to be special, and I'm going to pay you for your time because you're valued. You are a
Mhm.
valuable part of this community. And so, yeah, I reached out to a couple of developers and I just asked.
Mm.
It's
The
that
power of-
simple.
yeah.
Have an ass mentality, man. Like I started calling C-suites. I was like, hi, my name is Lydie Gutfeld. I'm director of community services. And a lot of times like, click, like a lot of people hung up, but I did have a few
Not
developers
your
that,
target market.
no, right. They're like, and
Move on.
but no, we did have a few that called back and set up meetings
Mhm.
with us. And then we found out that they had like a philanthropic arm of their, firm, and they had funds. And so, a $20,000 check here, a $10,000 check here, it adds up. And
Mhm.
we were able to engage that way. I thought that was really cool. One of the most unique, I think, collaborations was with the tribe. So when you're working with Yamava, it's the largest tribe, the San Manuel tribe of Band of Mission Indians, excuse me.
Mhm.
What a wonderful partnership. My goodness. I mean, there's the casino that's there, so there's funding that's there, but they have their own massive philanthropic arm. And we were able to tap into that through research and grants and find out how we could engage that into the community. And I think that was a huge blessing because you look at where we were, these were tribal lands, like real tribal lands.
Mm.
And to learn about land acknowledgments that had never been there, to learn about the Serrano language, people were blown away, and so it then became this cool, here's this collaboration that just now has engaged us in education and really learning about when you're standing on this ground, you need to respect what was here before,
Mm.
and I think that opened eyes and ears for the community. And I think it was kind of one of those cool things. And I got really, really lucky to just be at the right place at the right time, Craig. San Bernardino, I'm telling you, was kind of this gold mine of every day. There was like another conversation. And I remember my executive admin, she would always tell me, she's just like, you're never in the office. And I'm like, let me know when I need to be in the office. I was
Right.
I was in
Yeah.
meetings constantly because I wanted people to know the story. And I think that's a big part of collaboration. If you truly want to talk about it, is
Yeah.
you can't just go into a collaboration without knowing what your end goal needs to be.
Mhm.
Because that's how you build the story. That's how you build how this collaborative effort is going to engage into the next, and
Mhm.
I think with the tribe, that was one of those things where it was first a conversation and applying for a grant through the tribe. And then lo and behold, I get a call from Los Angeles Dodgers.
Mm.
What? What are we doing? What's happening? And they're like, we think we want to come out to San Bernardino and check out your fields. We think we want to build some Dodger dream fields.
I'm so glad that you're saying this. I interviewed Mark Flores yesterday in
Whoa.
Linwood, California. Do you know him?
The best playground ever. Did he talk about his cool
Oh,
playground?
we are doing a. So
I
I
have
had
such
him send me.
FOMO. You have no idea. I'm like,
I had him send me videos. So now, shout out to Chris and Catlin. There are videographers that work with the Daily Parks and Rec Show full time.
mhm.
And I said, okay, Mark, you have to send them as much footage as you have. We're going to make this part of the YouTube kind of special we have to highlight the playground.
What a
And
cool
yeah,
project.
but he was saying, and maybe it's just a California thing, and his background and like yours is special. He's like, man, if you don't have any money, you're not looking around you, because there are corporate sponsorships at every corner that if you can just raise awareness and make
Yep.
friends, and like you said, ask, there's funding.
Yeah.
You just got to put yourself out, get out the office, go meet the community and go let them know what your needs are.
Right. I think, Mark says it perfectly, but that playground is no joke, man. I mean,
It is.
I'm
What
like,
is it? He sent me some video. Well, just when the YouTube comes out from his yesterday, we're gonna have blow that playground up for the country to see
I
because it's
mean,
special.
as soon as it opened, I'm like, all right, okay, we just upped it a little bit here, whatever. Thanks, Mark.
Yes.
No, but it's true. I
Mhm.
think here's the thing, and this is what I learned. I think is as coordinators and supervisors, we work on special events quite a bit,
Mhm.
and I think we're trained we got to get out and get sponsorships,
Mhm.
right? And so here's this template, here's this paper, here's this letter, give me money, right?
Mhm.
And that's it. It's so transactional.
Yes.
And then I get to San Bernardino. I don't want your paper. What's your story?
A
Right?
relationship. It's more of a relationship.
That part, right? Where it's
Relationship, right.
genuine.
Mhm.
They're coming in to give me a check, not just for the city, but for our relationship, right?
Yeah.
Because they know I'm going to back up what I said, and they know I'm going to back them. They know I'm going to highlight them. They know I'm going to do my job to make sure that they're respected in the community, because whatever they're developing, there's going to be some sort of impact to the community, right? And
Yeah.
so it creates, just like Mark said, it's a relationship. And there's so many corporate businesses in each city that you have to learn how to not cold call. You have to learn to be persistent. And
Mhm.
just because somebody hangs up or says no thank you doesn't mean that you can't send a follow-up. It doesn't mean that you can't send a letter. It doesn't mean that you can't go knock on doors. You
Mhm.
can. And I think the more that we do that, the more that we'll learn who is actually living, working, and playing in our community. And I think that we have a lot to learn in that area. We really,
Yeah.
really do.
I think in that case, it's really just good to seek first to understand, then to be understood. And so when you're reaching out to these people, let's hear their story for a second before we go straight into our sales pitch for how much money we need.
Well, and gosh, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I just kind of sat in these meetings, and I think I just left I always brought Kleenex because San Bernardino made me cry, because I'm just like,
Mm.
man, y'all have just been let down. You've been let down for a long time. And
Yeah.
it felt good to be, I'm going to solve this problem. I'm going to figure this out. And, people start kind of gravitating towards that.
Yeah.
And once they see what happened to one, then they see it. They're like, they believe, right? And I
Mm.
have a couple of really cool stories in San Bernardino where that happened.
Yeah, I've got so much more I want to cover with you. I cannot believe we're at the 55-minute mark. We're gonna have to do a season 2
I love
of
it.
this Lydie Gutfeld series. Let's close with you giving just a good, strong pitch to why you should attend the state association and all state associations, but then maybe what's special about California's.
Yeah, I think CPRS is just kind of very unique in the sense, like you said, it's one of the largest ones in the nation. We have, 15 districts, 7 sections. There's no way you can say there's not something for me. There's a ton of scholarships that are available. So really, do your work and just go and research it. And if you can't figure it out, you give me a call and I'll get you connected for sure. But I think my pitch is whatever you're going to do it at 100%. Make sure that you understand whatever you're going to put into this organization, you're going to get out of it. So you can choose just to be a bystander member, and that's fine. You're going to get the emails. You're going to go to conference. It is what it is. Or you can seriously start to look at what your leadership journey is going to look like. And when that happens, I think you start to gain lifelong friendships. You start to make a network that if I don't know the answer to something, I got 25 people I'm going to call in 10 minutes and get the answer to it,
Right.
and that's invaluable. There's nothing there's no price tag that we can put on that. And so I think, when you join a state organization, it's a two-way street. And I think people sometimes forget that it's not just a place to go to conference. It's a place to really engage. And every single job I have had, every single interview that has been my top level interview has always been with people who were CPRS members. And it was because of my engagement in leadership in CPRS
Mhm.
that I got the job.
Fantastic. Yep, that's a great pitch. I mean, even just not just the connectivity, but the relationships and lifelong relationships that you acquire.
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing I am committing to do for this industry, I'm taking responsibility for it, is I have been asked so many times by people like yourself to do something for the maintenance side of parks and recreation. I'm like, what kind of content can we create? It's like, man, if you create anything for maintenance, and I actually started to do this, and let me tell you, there is infinite content I could make around maintaining $100 million real estate portfolios that you people are managing with the staff. This is how I'm speaking to all directors listening here. From now on, when people ask what you do, this needs to be your answer.
Okay.
Okay. I run a $10 million annual budget agency that manages a $100 million real estate portfolio and improves it at about 10 million a year in capital improvements, whose sole focus is to increase the quality of life of our neighborhoods. And
are you reciting that right now without even looking at a paper? Because I'm impressed.
In my head. I don't think people understand the scale and the scope of just the real estate portfolio, the sheer money and that y'all orchestrate with your staff. And it's just amazing. And it's focused on improving the quality of life of every human in America. There is not a square inch of America that's not some park and rec director's responsibility to manage this massive real estate portfolio. And
thank you.
It's huge. And the property value that goes up around anything y'all touch, I really want to get a much better idea of just getting the funding and financing around that, so that people understand how important it is, the work y'all are doing.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times when they think Parks and Rec, like, oh, y'all the ones that put on the baseball teams. I'm like, well.
Okay, I've been doing this for 30 plus years. I'm telling you, I still can't. When people are like, well, what do you do? And I still can't answer it. It changes every day, you know? And so you said it really nicely.
I'm going to come up with messaging.
We do so much. Yeah. And if you can come up with that messaging too, just
I will get it.
understanding it's the very unique relationship, you know, parks and park operations and then recreation. We are like this a lot of the time, but man, we make magic, and you know, one doesn't survive without the other. And I'm blessed to be in this job. This is the best job in the world. I love coming to work. I love making a difference, and I'm going to do it till the day I die.
I know. Keep doing it. You're one of the great ones here. So keep it up. And if there's anyone in maintenance that you are proud of, please send them my way. I'm making a 1-hour show 5 days a week, right before this noon show, Eastern, just for park maintenance. And so anything you do with park maintenance, send them our way. Thank you so much for your time today, Lydie. We're going to have to do this again because I've got like 10 other topics that we have not even touched.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm a talker.
No, fantastic show. Very entertaining. I love the wisdom you've shared with us. And thank you so much for your service and what you've done for our communities.
It's my pleasure. And we got to keep doing the work. So thank you, Craig. I appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. Have a great weekend.
All right. You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. Well, I knew that was going to be exciting when I talked to her on one of my long car rides traveling this great nation. As you can see behind me, I am in the Parks and Rec Director's office in Pensacola, Florida, one of the most gorgeous beach communities you'll ever see. If you have not visited Pensacola or any of our Gulf Coast beaches right here on the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, I think it's called now, it's just gorgeous. It's beautiful. So I'm getting ready to take a tour of all their facilities. I've actually lived in Pensacola for about a year of my life, and I missed it so much. Tanya, thank you so much for hosting me here. Hopefully we'll get her on the show here shortly. If not today, probably in the next couple of weeks. But I am so serious about our maintenance side of this show. It'll probably take me a couple more weeks, but I've got so much momentum, so much outpouring of support for this. And so I really think it is an underserved part of Parks and Recreation, and that's the maintenance crews. They are typically about half of the manpower, a lot of the budget. I mean, we all know that y'all are maintaining many times 50 to 100 million, sometimes $200 million worth of real estate that needs Mother Nature's constantly growing all over it. There's things that are breaking. There's chemicals to be sprayed. There's, splash pads, you name it. This real estate portfolio needs constant attention. And these are a lot of the unsung heroes behind the scenes, keeping our parks beautiful, keeping them functioning and stuff. And so we want to do something for them that's special, that really is their kind of place to hang out and learn and have the wisdom shared here. So if you are a urban forest specialist, if you are a field maintenance specialist, if you have learned a lot about irrigation, fighting pesticides and weeds, dealt with even electricians, plumbers, stuff like that. Any type of degree of mastery held in park maintenance, we're going to showcase y'all. We're going to do it 5 days a week from 11 to 12 noon Eastern, right before this show. So it'll be a solid 2 hours of programming. Content created for Parks and Rec, specifically for Parks and Rec. This is going to be y'all's media network, I guess is what we're going to call it. So thank y'all so much for the support. I can't tell you how awesome it is to create content for this community and to give a voice for y'all to share the wisdom that y'all have. This is an amazing industry. One of the most exciting industries I've ever discovered, and has me questioning my life of what I did and how come I didn't, actually work in Parks and Rec. I did work in Parks and Rec when I was a super young man. But then I got into manufacturing and a lighting engineer by trade. So that goes into how you can support the channel. Please consider supporting the channel by buying the most popular LED light I have ever manufactured in my life. I've made explosion-proof lights for chemical plants and street lights, but it was by far this literally bulletproof LED light that I gave to maintenance departments to convert from their old baseball field lights. This is kind of like for your neighborhood baseball parks. You can relight a whole baseball field for, $30,000, or you can just buy 5 of them as they go out. That was kind of the niche that we solved. We work with a lot of the smaller community fields. So if this is something that you have, I'm actually using this similar to how the Girl Scouts use selling cookies to get their girls on little campouts. I'm using any of our light sales goes 100% of the profit is driven right back into the daily Parks and Rec show to create this media company for Parks and Rec. Appreciate everyone that has already purchased some lights from us, that puts fuel in our tank and allows us to hire more talented videographers, social media managers, content creators, so that we can really make this an excellent place to tell the story of Parks and Recreation. All right, so we're up on the weekend. I will be back here Monday, and I wish everybody have an awesome, safe weekend. Try not to party it up too hard. Love you guys. I will see y'all here Monday, 12 noon. It's Craig LeBlanc, the doorman, with the daily Parks and Rec show. Have an awesome weekend. Bye.
When you invest in our high-performance LED sports arena lights, you're not just upgrading your facilities, you're helping us illuminate the untold stories of parks and recreation communities. Every purchase directly supports the Daily Parks and Rec Show, a media platform on a mission to celebrate the heart and soul of our local parks and programs. From after-school activities to summer leagues, these spaces shape lives, and their stories deserve to be told. Why your support matters. Capturing community impact. Your contribution helps us assemble a talented team of digital artists, storytellers, and filmmakers to create compelling videos, articles, and short films that spotlight how Parks and Rec programs change lives. Sharing untold stories. From a child's first home run to lifelong friendships forged on the court, we'll document these priceless moments and share them with the world. Inspiring the next generation. By highlighting the joy, inclusivity, and opportunities found in our parks, we foster a deeper appreciation for these vital community spaces. Light up arenas, brighten futures. Your choice to install LED sports arena lights isn't just a smart investment in energy efficiency and performance, it's an investment in stories that deserve to be told. Be part of the story. Take action today. Purchase LED sports arena lights and help us shine a spotlight on the heartwarming stories that define our parks and communities. Contact us now to learn more about our products and how your support fuels the daily Parks and Rec show. Together, we'll shine a light on the moments that matter most.